Good afternoon to all of you. I will try indeed in a few words, in a few minutes, to kick off this fourth digital conference organized by UIC, usually at the end of the year, together with our General Assembly, to go through the evolution of the digital context and whatever we have tried to do for the sake of our members, for the sake of the railway operating community in this digital approach and digital revolution. So just a few words to maybe go back into history, even if we are going to talk about the future. I just want to imagine that we are in 1962 when this building was inaugurated. And in this place, maybe not the same lecturer, but in this same very place, one of my prestigious predecessors, Mr. Louis Armand, actually inaugurated this building. And he inaugurated this building with a vision. And at that time, he had the vision that cybernetics could be the major evolution to come in the transport sector. And he wanted UIC to be an actor and a vector of this evolution, of this revolution at that time. We were not already in the information technology. But we tried to do, and I think that, we made it happen. We, I think, fulfilled one of this mission, which is to work on future projects, to develop strategic visions, to harmonize and standardize operation, and federate research all over the world for the members. I would just mention a couple of projects that you probably know well, and I hope that you are involved in them, like ETCS, like ERTMS, like GSMR and the future radio mobile communication system, but other ones as well in the digital information, in the satellite tracking, and so on. So now, after this page of history and nostalgia, let's talk about the future, because the future is today. The future in this 21st century is this fourth revolution, the digital revolution. And you know, railways actually survived a couple of previous revolutions, because there was the first one in the 19th century, where with the steam engine and the metallic structures, we actually have been a vector of economic development, at least in Europe and further on in other countries. Then in the second part of the 20th century, we had the oil crisis and the information technology, which we survived with electrification, with high speeds, together with electrification, and also with the global distribution systems inspired from the aviation modes. And now we have this fourth revolution, the digital one, where we also want to take the opportunity to be an actor and a vector of change. But a change in a context which has also changed. This 21st century actually shows a number of new paradigms, and I would highlight three of them. One is that we are going gradually from a world of possess to a world of access. And this has actually a very important impact on our sector of mobility. The second, which is probably more societal, is that we probably everywhere in the world, whether in developed or developing countries, probably have to think of and nurture a better balance between individual liberty and collective benefit. And this is good for France as well. And also a third one, which is probably more adapted to our own sector. We really have to change, I would call them self-centered habits of working, traditional ways, indigenous ways, to work in more open ecosystems. And in this context, with a change of philosophy, with a change of paradigm, what about transportation? Well, transportation has gone precisely from transport, semantics, to mobility, to accessibility, which is now the specific definition of the United Nations for transport. Also, transport accessibility is becoming an optimized way to access a succession of space and time slots in different modes. You reserve a seat on a train or on a plane, you will reserve a BlaBlaCar or a a car, or you will reserve a bicycle, and then you will have from the first to the last mile, you will have actually temporary access to different spaces, organized, interfaced between different modes. And this is what we call the chain of mobility. And you know, to organize this chain of mobility in a successful strategy, there is a couple of principles that are always the same. And as I had the privilege to work with the United Nations on their future strategic plan for mobility in the 21st century, they can be summarized in 5 strategic I's. That's easy to remember. The first I is there is no transportation accessibility whatsoever if there is not infrastructure. This is something that we should never forget. Infrastructure is the driver of any transportation, especially ours. Then investment is the second I, because especially our infrastructure costs a lot, and this is many debates on the return of investments and the PPPs and whatever. The third I is, and specifically in this platform, in this conference, innovation. We have to be creative. We have to innovate and probably federate better our innovation and research structures. The fourth I, to have proper innovation, you need intelligence. Doesn't mean that we have not been intelligent or that we were stupid in the past, but it means that we have to adapt to this new open ecosystem and try to reach other types of intelligence, to reinvent our modes of transportation, to reinvest the chain of mobility with new brains and young brains, which come from the universities, which come from the startups, and I'm very happy to see a number here in this room. And this is why we are developing, we'll come back to that later in the afternoon, a number of awards, and that we have opened the doors of UIC to universities, and we are now counting more than 40 of them in a growing number. There was a waiting list, and this is fantastic because young students can be involved in some of our projects and become acquainted with the rail transportation system, and then become maybe our replacement in a few years. So this strategy, the 5 I's, have also to adjust in a context, a digital context of big data. And I would summarize this one again with 5 C's this time. And the 5 C's is to collect data need to be collected. Then they need actually somehow to be corrected. You know, there is fake news everywhere, so we have probably to adjust the data and be in capacity to correct them. Then, what is most important, the third C, is to connect them. And this is the C of connectivity. Connectivity is the key. Without connectivity, data is absolutely worthless. Then the fourth C is commerce. Commerce in the humanistic sense of the word, not mercantile. You have actually to realize a new way of exchanges between people, between regions, between companies, probably a new way as well to work between operators and manufacturers. This is what I call intelligent commerce. And the fifth C is whatever we have to do every morning when we wake up is to create. We need to force the creation, force the speed of creation. And precisely, I think that in this context and with this strategy, there is probably something that we have to do in another way. We have to be more rapid, more reactive, more relational, and more responsible. This is, as you understand, the 4 R's. Okay? Remember 4 I's, 5 I's, 5 C's, 4 R's. Rapid, because the technological transformation cycles go faster and faster, because the trains need to go faster, but the flows of data also need to go faster. So rapidity is not an only objective, it's a means of adaptation to this world that goes faster. The second R is reactive. Well, the evolutions and the needs of the markets are changing also quickly, and we have to react very more quickly than we used to and adjust actually more flexibly to these needs. And this is actually more difficult for us because we are used to very long cycles of investments, precisely because the return of our investments are low, and changing equipment or changing cycles is also very difficult for our industry. So this is why in the financing approach we are trying to develop more and more of this PPP approach and new finance ideas, also with the help of other banking institutions, how to get access quickly to green bonds, for instance, how to be carbon compensated, how to get sponsors. This is the way that is for us a response to this reactivity need. Relational, well, you understand, as I said before, that we cannot work within ourselves anymore in this pyramid. Okay, when we grow among ourselves, we need to open the pyramids. And opening the pyramids need that we cannot work alone. We need to work with partners. UIC counts, as I said, 40 universities, but also 80 partners around the world with whom we exchange ideas, we exchange data, we work on common topics, on common visions. We also promote, actually, through various conferences, workshops, books, the beauty of rail transportation. And this is actually something that needs to be for us much more relational. And as I said, also probably reinvent a new constructive partnership relation with the manufacturing industry across the world. The fourth R is responsible. Responsible, and here I would actually mention two issues because, and this is very topical of COP24 in Katowice this day, or this week. As you know, transportation accounts for 25% of all the CO2 emissions in the world. Rail is only one of them, 1% of this 25%. But it doesn't mean that we can be content of this, because other modes also improve. We have to go better, especially with the fact that 65% of the population will be urbanized in the next 10 years, and this will generate an increase of 300% of CO2 emissions. So this has to be also taken into consideration for responsibility. Another responsibility is safety and security. Of course, the digital inputs, the IoTs, the blockchain, the cloud computing, all of this is part of this equation to improve, anticipate the idea of security and cybersecurity. This is also why we have developed this platform. This is this digital platform, and I thank you, Bjorn, to be here with us. I have to apologize for Jenny Sharkin, who couldn't make it at the very last minute, but we try to improve for our members productivity, we try to improve services with new ideas, and we try to improve benchmarking of ideas, sharing of ideas with one philosophy in 3 words this time, which is to open, to share, and to connect. And part of it is through a number of proof of concepts. Part of it is through a number of workshops. Part of it is through the participation in a number of digital conferences around the world, and there are so many at the same time. I just remember with UITP, the SITSE in Singapore, in which ideas were flowing. But also awards opened, and this will be the 3rd edition of the UIC Award for Startups, to precisely open the doors to other partners, to other ideas, and probably to develop with them not only a vision, but practically, and that will probably be my words of conclusion now and later on, probably the idea of an open lab for our members. So all this fits into what I would call an acronym. Transportation is now accessibility, at a chain of accessibility in a digital world. So the acronym is easy to remember, is CICICOM. We are a CICICOM, which is a sustainable, integrated, connected, international chain of mobility. And this is precisely the theme of the high-level conference that is going after this conference this afternoon, to which you are all invited. Logistically, buses will be awaiting for you to take you to the Place de la Concorde immediately after. Something else that we are also planning, and I thank our members from Infrabel who probably are here with us, is the first World Digital Conference by UIC for and with the ecosystem. This will be in June? From the 3rd to the 5th of June in Brussels, together with Infrabel, and I think Francis will probably show us a couple of initial ideas on this issue, but please put that in your diary because it promises to be quite creative. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Sorry if I have been too long, Mr. Master of Ceremony. Thank you.